My name is Partho and I work in a steel factory located in Kulti, West Bengal. It's a quite old steel plant but lesser known than some of the others like the Bhilai steel plant. Our job was on rotational basis. Sometime we were assigned to mini mills, sometime on bloomer. The night when I experienced this event, I was assigned on blast furnace. So blast furnace is basically a big furnace used to separate out a metal from its ore. This is done by applying some chemicals, extreme heat and pressure on the ore inside the furnace. This process goes on for months and it is extremely important to maintain this pressure and heat in furnace in order to keep it running and working properly. There was always a guy assigned dedicatedly to monitor the temperature and pressure readings of the corresponding meters in the furnace. These readings must be in certain range. The assigned guy was supposed to raise an alarm in case any parameters is off range. I was posted on night shift to monitor the blast furnace. There were 3 main blast furnaces in the whole plant. I was assigned to number 3 that night, also called as BF3. The blast furnace had an adjoining rest house where the assigned guy would put up for resting and lodging. That rest house was quite big in size and had pretty old furniture in it. It was very well maintained, had all the amenities like TV, refrigerator, kitchen, bedroom, air conditioner, all stuff that would be in a typical luxurious house. It was extremely comfortable. That night I reached there around 10 pm. I was pretty before time compared to my shift time, which was from 12 to 7 in the morning. I was alone in my home as my wife left to meet her parents in Asansol. So I arrived at work pretty early that night. During my entire shift of 7 hours from 12 till 7, I was supposed to take 3 readings and note them down in a chart. First at 12, the very start, second at 3 am and the last at 6:30 am. Each reading process for all the parameters takes about 15 to 20 minutes if everything is in place. Immediately after reaching at plant, I headed for the plant's cafeteria for dinner, as the dinner option gets minimized after 11 pm. After dinner, I went on to meet my friend posted at Blast Furnace 01. And finally to Blast Furnace 3, I was supposed to take care of. I arrived at the guest house, settled myself and got ready to take the first set of reading from the furnace at 12. I took all the pressures and temperature reading, put them on the chart and headed back to guest house. I sat in the living room and switched on the TV. There was a sitcom show on that time, which was one of my favorite. I started watching it. After about an hour or so, somehow I slept off. After a brief nap, I suddenly got awake by the noise of TV. So I slowly reached out for remote, switched it off and closed my eyes again. It was a perfect silent environment to slip in a deep sleep. It must be around an hour or so since I slept off, when I suddenly got slapped so hard that I was instantly awake from that deep sleep and fell from the sofa on which I was sleeping. While I got slapped, I heard a voice telling me, "Komiona," which means don't sleep in Bengali. That voice sounded like a male, but nowhere close to normal human voice. It was distorted and in extremely heavy pitch and had different types of voices which got me really scared. When I fell off from the sofa and saw around myself to find who did that, there was no one around and no sign of presence of any living entity except myself. The closest exit was the main door, which was properly closed by me, and it was about 30 feet from the sofa I was sleeping on. And it would take at least 6 to 7 seconds for an average human being to reach the door, while I got awake in less than 2 seconds. Moreover, it is impossible to go outside without opening the main door. The windows had grills on them. So in that moment of panic, the next thought that came to me was, is someone still hiding inside the guest house? That possibility too seemed impossible, as there was no spot in the guest house enough to hide a person in small duration of less than 2 seconds, as the area of the guest house was quite big and open type. But I still looked around thoroughly to rule out the possibility, only to conclude that there was no one around. This scared me even more. I'm more of a rational person and don't get panicked or scared easily. But this was different. I was feeling petrified. I was still in the process of making a sense of what just happened. I suddenly noticed on the window there were clear impressions of two hands that would generally be made when a glass window covered with fog. Someone places its hand on the window in order to sneak inside. Except that side of the window was facing a big jungle type of abandoned area, and the window was on a height of about 20 feet from the ground. It freaked me out. In the moment of desperation and fear, I looked at the clock. It was exactly 3 a.m. It struck me that I should go on to take the second set of readings. I quickly put on my jacket and headed outside with the charts. After I was done with the readings, I was monumentally scared to go back to that guest house, so I decided to go to my colleague who was assigned to Blast Furnace 1. I reached the guest house next to the Furnace 1, where my friend and colleague was putting up. He was kind of asleep. I told him the whole incident that just happened. He too felt a little scared and told me that Blast Furnace 3 guest house has a pretty notorious reputation of such events. It was about 40 years back when a factory worker died in an accident during the maintenance of that blast furnace. This furnace is not the same one, as it was replaced with this new one, but that guest house has earned itself a pretty bad reputation for such incidences. He went on to tell me a similar kind of incident. When there was this guy who was also assigned for a night duty to Blast Furnace 3. Around the same time, that is 3 a.m., he got awake due to a loud sound. When he opened his eyes, he saw the bookshelf in the living room started tilting as if it was about to fall. The guy quickly sprung to hold it, but stopped in midway as the shelf was tilted halfway, but it stood like that as if someone is holding it. Before that poor guy could understand anything or collect his senses, he was slapped extremely hard at the back of his head. When he looked around, there was no one there. He was so terrified that he quickly ran outside the guest house and kept running till he was outside the main gate of the plant. I was extremely scared after hearing this and couldn't sleep the remaining time. At 7, when my shift was supposed to end, I went back to furnace to get the last set of readings. While going there, I had to pass through the front of that guest house. I swear, in the winter morning and amidst the fog, it looked so creepy. Some of my stuff was still in there, but I ain't going in there. I took the reading and left for my place. From that point on, I decided I would never go back to the same posting. Blast Furnace 3. God knows what's lurking in there.